Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to continue on with our Princeton project updates. I know there hasn't been a couple of updates in the last couple of days, but I've been really working hard on like 4 regiments, and I just finished them today. And I've put them on the shelf right here. This whole shelf right here is just the Continentals for the Princeton project. Half of the next shelf, which I don't know if they're even on camera, the British right there, that is the majority of the British. They seem to be outnumbered heavily. They're supposed to be outnumbered about 4-1 historically. It was about 4,500 to maybe 1,500 men. I guess that's 3-1. The Continentals weren't all at the battle at the start. They gradually filtered in. So that gives the British an opportunity to get into position, set up defenses, and eat away at the Continentals. And then as the Continentals die or rout or flee, more Continentals come in. So we'll see. And plus they're better trained troops than these militia up here. But we'll see how it works out. Now I pulled out the Black Powder book, 2nd edition, and I pulled out my Rebellion book because I wanted to go over a couple of things for myself, but also with you while you're watching. Now I did get all my orders in. I got my Perry miniatures in. I got my Warlord Games miniatures in. I got my GMB flags. I got my Flags of War miniatures. Flags of War flags in. I've flagged everybody, and I've painted all the Continentals. I actually wound up having 1 extra box of Continental Militia, which that's great because that means any future project, I'll be able to pull those out and I'll be able to paint them up and slap them together. Now I do have some Perry miniature British Dragoons on my workbench right over there. I am going to be filming the whole painting process of the dismounted 16th Dragoon Regiment. I'm going to be painting those on camera. I do want to say that the GMB designs flags, I'm very happy with them. The paper absorbs glue very well. I use PVA. You put the PVA on both sides, you stick it together, squeeze it together, get all the good loving juiceness out of it, and it hardens up. All the British flags over there, they're GMB now, and they're just a little bit larger than Flags of War, and also a little bit larger than Perry or Warlord flags. But with the spears that I was using, they're looking really good. I was able to get take their flags, was able to drill holes into their hands to be able to get standard bearers. The standard bearers that I had that were metal, I would cut the standards off and I drilled holes and glued the spears in place. There's only a couple of Continentals that I haven't done that with yet. I don't know if I'm going to bother, but there is a couple of flags still to come in because I made a second order. I ordered the 2nd New Hampshire and the New York Regiment and maybe a couple of Union flags. I attempted to make some Union flags of my own. I printed them on my own printer paper, and I even put it at like max resolution, and they still don't look as good as the GMB flags. So I ordered some more GMB flags. I'm going to wait for them to come in, and then I'll use some Union flags in place of the Betsy Ross flags. A couple of guys up here still have the Betsy Ross because the Battle of Freeman's Farm, the Betsy Ross was in use, but at Princeton and Trenton, it was the Union flag. And the main difference between the Union and Betsy Ross is the Union flag, where the stars are in the Stars and Stripes, there are no stars. It is a British cross. The so you got the British Cross and then the 13 colony stripes. That's the Union flag. The Betsy Ross flag has the 13 stripes, but it has a circle of stars. So it's years, it's timing, and nobody's gonna complain that I've got a Betsy Ross on the table. I've got all but 3 generals done. All the generals from the British side are finished. 4 of the Continental generals are finished, and I only need to do Greene, Mercer, and Washington, which is actually 4 figures because Washington's actually a 2-figure base. So that's 4 general figures that I've got to do. I got to do the dragoons, the mounted and the foot dragoons. And then the last thing I need to do is like 2 cannons for the Continentals and 3 wagons for the British. And then we'll be done because I've got the terrain already finished. I've got the buildings finished, except I got a little bit of painting to do, touching them up, and everything's pretty much done. So now the Princeton project is gradually, even though I am still doing a few figures, it's starting to transition into a, let's talk about rules, let's talk about victory conditions, let's talk about the order of battle and what turn they come onto the table and things like that. Basically, the gameplay part of it. We've done the concepting and the building of the armies, and now we need to do the game design. We got to design the actual scenario. So I'm going to put a different set of glasses on so I can read. Now we're not going to... Okay, Black Powder 2nd edition doesn't have too many changes, luckily. There's very few changes, but they have a couple of new rules that I think they pulled... A lot of these rules they pulled out of these supplements, because the supplements have rules in them that are not in the books, or in the main book. And he said that he went through the rules that he wanted to make universal, and he put them in this book. And one of them is they're called useful rules. It's the abilities they have. It's basically abilities. One of them is poor shooters. It could also mean that not everybody's got a rifle. Not everybody's got, only half the guys are equipped to shoot or something. Because basically it means that you re-roll a single hit every time it shoots. I think I want to give some of the militia units this ability. I don't know, but I think I do. Unreliable. We often call this the militia rule. So I'm thinking about using unreliable. Untested. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to do untested because that basically randomizes the strength of a unit, like how many hits it can take before it runs. I don't think I'm going to do that. And then wavering, that means they got to make a break test every time they take any casualties. I don't think I'm going to take that either. Stubborn, I don't think so. Mounted infantry, no. Elite fanatics, no. Bloodthirsty, no. These guys aren't like American Indians or anything. There's no American Indians actually in this battle. There's no Lancers. Okay. Another thing. Okay, the Black Powder is set up to be played in a variety of different eras, right? Well, one of the eras is Napoleonics. And so they give rules on... Because in Napoleonic times, units were extremely well trained. I mean, they knew their business. And strategies and tactics have changed over time. So even though the British are extremely well trained, they're not Napoleonic British. Okay. Don't have to worry about this rule so much because the Allies have no cavalry. I say the Allies because we got Germans and New Hampshire guys and Virginias, and it's the Continentals. They have no cavalry. So the British don't have to worry about forming square. Okay. The Continentals, there's one dragoon unit on the table. It's 2 bases. It was primarily used for scouting. It's not, and baggage train protection and stuff like that. It's not a combat, it's not heavy cavalry. That wasn't really used like that in the American War of Independence. The Continentals cannot form square. So if the dragoons do charge them, the Continentals will just have to fight in the formation they're in, and they will either win or lose on their merit, right? They cannot form square. Can't happen. So we don't have to worry about that rule. The British detach their lights into their own units. In this case, there are no lights. So the British and the Continentals in this case cannot form mixed formations. There's no, I've got a brigade and I'm going to send some guys out to be skirmishers. Can't do it. So that's a rule we don't have to worry about. There's no mixed formations. There's no squares. There's no attack columns. There's no columns per se to do anything. So there's only 2 formations. This is going to make it easy for me. There's only 2 formations. March column and line. That's it. Or if you're artillery, limbered or unlimbered. That's it, right? So it's like you're ready to move out or you are in a line. And another reason why those are the only available formations is because of the scale that I've converted this to. I've changed it from a regimental block of guys to a company block of guys. The blocks are approximately 150 guys. So each one of these, the American regiments are decimated. They have very few guys left in those regiments. Some of the regiments had 4 guys in them. 4. So you have to combine the regiments. Like the Virginia regiments are really hurting. So I'm only putting 2 Virginia regiments on the table when in fact there was probably like 8 of them at the battle. But they were all so small and they were fighting side by side other regiments. So I combined them to make about 150 men to make one of these blocks their regiment. The Allies or the Continentals will call them regiments, but really they're like company size. The Germans, which I have 2 regiments here, was really only 1 regiment, but it had so many men in it that I split it into 2. So, because I considered making it a large unit, but it still wouldn't be large enough because that only makes it 250 men. I needed it to be closer to 3, almost 400 men. So I said, we'll make 2 units. So we made 2 units, and I looked and I said, the majority of the guys there were from the Pennsylvania Germans and Maryland Germans. So that's what I did. I just said, okay, I'll make a Pennsylvania German and a Maryland German unit. So the Germans have actually 2 regiments when really they're going to have to operate together anyway, which is fine. There were a handful of guys that were designated skirmishers. They said, hey, go out there and skirmish. Like the 1st Virginia Rifles are not skirmishers. It's a unit equipped with rifles, but they're not skirmishing. But there is a Virginia rifle unit out there that is skirmishing. I know, it's a little confusing. And then I've got the Pennsylvania lights, and I have the Delaware lights. Those 3 units are skirmishing. The Marines, I wasn't exactly sure. I had to do a lot of research on this. The Marines, there was only like 80 Marines there. So guess what? That's a 2 base unit, 8 figures, because I'm doing 10 to 1. The Marines didn't skirmish. They might have had a few guys out skirmishing, but primarily they were fighting as a block. So, as a shoulder to shoulder, men in line, firing like that. So I didn't make them skirmishers. They're just going to be a small unit of 8 guys. There's a Maryland unit up there that's actually 2 Maryland units, or Mass units. Massachusetts? Okay, I can't remember, but there's 2 of them that formed a very small unit because they were so small. So I just went ahead and made one little small Massachusetts unit, and that's what they are. The overall gist, I'm sorry, I think I got sidetracked onto a tangent, but the overall gist is the units are super small, company sized. There's no mixed formation, so there's no need to say I'm deploying skirmishers or I'm not deploying skirmishers. So what I did was I mounted the skirmishers on skirmish bases because they are always going to be in skirmish, and I mounted the line troops or militia on standard 4-figure bases because they're never going to change. We're not going to have to worry about squares. We're not going to have to worry about mixed formation, attack columns. We're only going to have to worry about line and march column. That's it. So it's going to make explaining the rules a lot easier. Okay. Now I have Rebellion. Rebellion does talk about like green and of course Washington, because they are there. Green is actually on the table first, fighting, and then Washington will show up like, I'm thinking turn 4. Okay, so on turn 4, General Washington takes over. What am I going to do with green when Washington shows up? Does he just pick up? Is he absorbed into the Washington stand? I think so. I think that's what we're going to do. But that gives green the first 4 turns, and I wanted to see, I haven't looked, I want to see if there's any difference in their abilities. If not, it won't matter. Okay, native of Rhode Island, great. Special rules, here we go. Green provided an able strategist in the South. He was less impressive as a tactician, failing to win any battles, even when the odds were in his favor. His staff rating should be no more than 8, and players may feel 7 or more appropriate. No, 7 to be more appropriate. There we go. Green's strategy in the South made him reluctant to risk his regular troops, and when issuing orders to Continental infantry, players should apply the timid characteristic. Okay. The problem with that is, in the new rules, they don't have to roll. They don't have to roll. All they do is assign a reroll. Okay. I'm coming up with something in my head right now. Maybe Green, instead of allowing his brigade commander a reroll, maybe he rerolls for him using his command rating, giving him that reroll, but using his command rating, which would be lower by 1 point. I think I like that. So all the brigade commanders, which really are regimental commanders, sort of, are going to have 8s. And then maybe give him a 7. But he doesn't allow you to reroll. He takes over and rerolls for you. I think I like it. I think that's what we're going to do with him. Let's go to Washington. Okay, Washington. Special rules. Washington is an audacious strategist and an inspirational commander, but found it difficult to coordinate large armies. His plans were sometimes too complex for his inexperienced forces to execute. The following suggestion is offered. At the beginning of any battle in which Washington is the commanding general, roll 3 dice and total the scores. If the result is greater or equal to the number of units on the army, then he has a staff rating of 9. But if it's less, his staff rating is reduced to 7. Furthermore, if Washington is in command at a battle, all rebel commanders will blunder on... Okay, now this one we can deal with. If Washington is in command at the battle, all rebel commanders will blunder on rolls 11 and 12. Washington is an inspirational leader, and any unit he accompanies that fails a break test can reroll that result. Washington may not act as a subordinate to another general ever. Okay, that's no problem. Okay, so he issues crazy commands all the time. So when Washington comes onto the table, his units blunder 3 times as much. Because a 12 and an 11, instead of just a 12, it'll be an 11. Dang. But if he's accompanying a unit, they get to reroll break tests. That's pretty cool. I'm just looking to see if there's any other named generals in here. Okay, let me go to Princeton, because they have it actually in the book. Here we go, Princeton. Okay, this says the militia should be given the unreliable rule. Okay. And when I look over here, I see militia unreliable. But regulars don't have any modifier. And they all shoot the same. They have the same morale. They have less stamina. Or was it Sullivan? Oh no, I thought it was Green, but maybe it was Sullivan that was there. Oh crap. Well, that's good. So you actually don't want Washington to show up, because Sullivan's a fine general. But actually, Sullivan can only issue orders to St. Clair, Fermoy, and... Okay, I thought it was Green. I'm going to have to look that up. This guy says it was Sullivan. Yes, I know Sullivan had a division, and I think his division was the first one on the table, or the second one on the table. So maybe, because you got Mercer and Cadwallader going up the road to the bridge. Okay, I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that. But I just wanted to see my general's abilities. Now this says the majority of the battlefield is rolling farmlands, but is generally flat, with the exception of Mercer's Hill. Right? That's fine. Mercer's Heights. The heights block line of sight, and troops charging up them will not gain the +1 die roll modifier normally allowed to chargers. Okay, because it's you lose the charge uphill. Okay. Stony Brook and the stream at Frog Hollow may be crossed without penalty at the bridges, but otherwise act as obstacles as described. Stony Brook is too wide for that? Okay. You can't cross Stony Brook. But Frog Hollow, absolutely. The woods and orchard block line of sight. Troops in these get +1 to morale. British regulars are not slowed when moving through the orchard, but other than this, all movement is affected. Okay, the British opens... Okay, Cadwallader comes on the second turn. Then Fermoy may enter the beginning of the next turn. Okay, the objectives that this book is saying is the rebel objective is to break the British forces. This will be achieved if 2 or more of the British commands are broken. A command is broken if it begins a turn with more than half the units routed or shaken. Okay, and the commands have 4 units, so they have to have 3, because 2 is not more, it's equal to. So it's going to be really hard to break or shake or break the units because there's an even number. There's also the unlikely possibility of breaking the rebel army, in which case the British could celebrate wildly as the war may be over. Yeah. So they anticipate the Americans crushing the British, but they only have 12 turns to do it. Yeah, and I think this is incorrect. We got the 17th Foot at the battle, but not the 17th Light Dragoons. I think that's supposed to be the 16th Light Dragoons, based on my research. I got to do a little bit more research just to make sure, but... Alright guys, let me go ahead and pick up the camera. I'm going to show you what I've got up here in the Continentals, and show you what I just finished, and then and at the same time I'll kind of show you the progress. Pretty much we're almost done. Well guys, I guess I don't have reach, so maybe that's why I put it on the table. Just finished these regiments there, but you can see all the buildings and the Continentals on this shelf. Though I've just finished these. Right there we've got the maybe that's right here. Right here we got the Rhode Island guys. We got the Green Mountain Boys, New Hampshire. We've got Smallwood. No, actually that's the Germans on the end. Philadelphia Associators. Chester County, Delaware Militia, Marines in the back, skirmishers up front, Small Woods Regiment right here, and I've got a Massachusetts unit and a New York Regiment right there representing the Virginians with these Virginia rifles right there. And then British are on the next shelf right there. There's the British. I've got four British cannons finished, but we're only going to need 3. And then I've got my 12 regiments right there, and then the 4 generals right there. I just need to do some more wagons and some carts and the horses and of course the dragoons. And then these are my Brunswickers right here, which I thought about using them as my Germans, but I'm just going to leave them as Brunswickers. Just leave them there for Freeman's Farm. I'm going to rebase them. I haven't done that yet. This is still British Grenadier. Yeah, because I'm going to do Freeman's Farm at some point as well. Sorry, I'm using a web camera, so I just didn't have enough reach from my computer desk over the shelf for you guys to get a super close-up video. But once I get everything done, you know, I'll do at the end of the month probably, I'll do like a full layout of all the figures, and we'll go into detail. Yeah, I'm filming in 1440 right now. I've got a 4K camera, but when I film it in 4K, the audio gets all screwed up. So I'm going to start filming in 1440. We'll see how that works out, and if it does, I'll continue doing it. All right, guys. I'll catch you in the next update.